All right, everybody, we are live with the Combatcast, and we are on all kinds of different platforms tonight. We're excited to talk some year-end stuff. Before we do, here's that sweet, sweet intro. All right, guys, welcome back to the Combatcast. And Chevy, tell people what they may or may not see in the next coming few weeks.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing an MMA Jeopardy episode for the end of the year here. Just there's no fight cards coming up until no UFC fight cards, at least until middle of January. I do believe there's that Ryzen and one or Bellator and one championship. I can't remember who it was. Ryzen and Bellator end of the year card, I believe that's what it was. But until then, we don't have too much going on. So just MMA Jeopardy next week.
MMA Jeopardy, and then we might have something for you. Well, we're going to have something for you a week after that. We'll just see what it is.
Yeah, we'll see. Special treat.
But
this week is going to be our end of the year card. So we're going to discuss who we would give out our awards for in MMA. So you want to get right into it, Dave?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll just sharing some stuff here with some people. But all right, actually, I tell you what, why don't you pick the
what's
first
up, Joe? Producer Joe.
Producer Joe in the comments.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so let's go to our first category here. This is probably going to be a pretty short show. We just got our opinion, so we'll talk about them a little bit. But
yeah,
female fighter of the year.
Okay.
I'll start off with this one.
Okay.
So my female fighter of the year. This one was very tough because we had a lot of dominant champions, as we usually do in women's MMA, lose their belts, or in the case of Valentina, probably should have lost her belt, but got a decision.
Toughest fight.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to swerve to none of the champions. And in fact, Santos was the person I gave Valentina that tough fight. Well, I'm going to go with her next opponent, the very young, I believe she's 23 years old, Erin Blanchfield, put on an absolute clinic this year. She subbed JJ Aldridge, and she also just mollywopped Molly Meatball McCann. So I'm going to give her my female fighter of the year for 2022.
Well done, sir. I did not see that come in. I thought about going Shevchenko again because she's always dominant, but she wasn't really dominant this year, but she's still, consistent.
She only had one fight this year too, which that was a contributing factor for me as well.
Right. But I went with Weili Zhang because after losing her title, coming back and fighting a really close fight with Rose at the end of 2021. This year, she gets a match with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, former champion, and they had to consider one of the greatest. Oh, hold on a second, there, people. You still there?
Oh yeah.
All right. I had a little pop up here, but difference. That's what you call all these platforms, right? But she smashes her, right? She ends up doing spinning back fists. Round 2, takes her out of the game. Jędrzejczyk retires, and God bless her. She's had a hell of a career, but that's impressive. But then she goes on and does what a lot of thought we should do. She takes Carl Esparza, which we expected her to beat her up, possibly TKO her. She taps her out. Round 2, she looks impressive. She stops Esparza's wrestling attack, which is like, she's picking up Francis Ngannou over her shoulders. Like, to me, Weili Zhang might be the future of MMA. I maybe not, but she's making an argument, and I could see her getting bigger and maybe contending for maybe another title, maybe a fight. You never know. So, but she's very impressive, and she was my pick for female fighter of the year.
I think I mentioned this after the Carla fight too. The fact she was trying to learn English, she did some English in her post-fight interview. I really think she is very charismatic. She's just a very likable fighter. Exciting style, great personality. So she's a baby face for the future of women's MMA for sure. So that's a good shout.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on. Next category, we're gonna go to male fighter of the year.
We did not pick the same guy, I bet. Go ahead.
I it hurt me, but
oh wow, I think we did.
I picked Alexander Volkanovski. He TKO'd the Korean Zombie, and he made a statement beating Max for a third time in the most dominant fashion. The guy's fantastic. Obviously, he's set up that fight to become double champ against Makhachev. And the guy is the pound for pound number one, and especially with Izzy losing and Usman losing, he really solidified that spot at number one. So congrats to him. It just so happens he beat my favorite fighter, but try to be unbiased here. So congrats to Volkanovski.
Wow. I did not expect you to be unbiased with this, but I am happy for you and I'm proud of you. Same thing, man. I had to pick him. At the end of the day, he makes that statement, like you said, with the Korean Zombie. Like you said, he makes another statement with Max Holloway, and he's looking like, who's going to stop him at featherweight? Well, he's like, you know what? No one's going to stop me at featherweight. So I'm going to go up another weight class and fight Makhachev in a fight that I'm ecstatic that we're going to get in 2023. But yeah, when I just looked around at all around, like best fighters male in the UFC and had a consistent year, Volkanovski was my guy.
Yeah, he's in 2023. He's going for like true greatness. If he can beat Makhachev, he's one of the best ever for sure.
Go ahead. What do you want to do for next? I had fight of the year on my next, but we can do whatever you got. So.
I got knockout of the year. Let's do knockout of the year. I'll start off. So I sat on the fence for a couple of these. I had a hard time picking, and this is one of the ones I had a hard time picking. So I'm going to give you two. And,
I got an honorable mention too.
Okay.
That's so funny.
So, I'm going to go with Chandler versus Tony Ferguson with that front kick, a technique that he never does against a super durable Tony Ferguson, not looking so great lately, but still his body of work and his durability is unmatched. So amazing knockout. Great fight before that. And then the other one I had to mention, obviously, the Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, that head kick knockout. Just with everything that was on the line, and how dejected he looked. Going through that fight, the fact that it was a 5th round comeback, and the fact that was a technique that he had shown he was working on the pads. So that was all in the plans, written in the stars. Post-fight interview with the pound for pound headshot line, just super hyped for that one.
Yeah, you took my exact ones too. All right, so Michael Chandler.
I'll give one more honorable mention. I know this is unfair, 3, but I just also want to shout out Marlon Vera with that head kick to Dominic Cruz. That was also a fantastic knockout.
Okay, yeah, that is a good one. Just saw a stat too where he's one of the guys who's had the most fights in the UFC and hasn't been knocked down at all.
20 fights without being knocked down. Max Holloway, John Jones, and Marlon Vera. That's
impressive. Great company.
Especially with the style of fight. He goes to war in his fights, and to never be knocked down is very impressive.
Jason Perot. I always think his striking coach. So yeah. All right. I basically had the other two you mentioned. I'll just give my reasons. Chandler and Ferguson was my honorable mention. It was probably the better knockout of the year stylistically. He can't beat it. That front kick, poor friggin' Tony's face where they froze it, and it's ridiculous. It's too bad, but it's a great knockout. And the other one, I had to go Edwards and Usman because, like you, to me, it was all on the line. And that's, I don't remember if we had time to pick it last year, but the one at the very end of the year for me was Sergio Pettis against, help me out here.
In PFL?
No, Sergio in Bellator.
Oh, Horiguchi.
Horiguchi, thank you. Yeah, when he did that spinning back fist in the 5th round. Here we go again. Leon Edwards, just with the title on the line, all there, and against a dominant champion against Usman. And I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat that, but good for him, good for his career. What a moment. It was my knockout of the year.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on from one finish to another finish. We'll do submission of the year. So speaking of Pettis, not Sergio, but Showtime Pettis.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Stevie Ray's Twister against Anthony Showtime Pettis in PFL.
That was a good one. I didn't actually end up going. I went with another direction. I was a little UFC heavy here, guys, but there was a reason why. This submission of the year, it's going to also play in some other factors here, but Prohaska versus Glover Teixeira. I just thought this was such a fantastic back and forth fight. Prohaska, a fight that I actually thought he was going to dominate. He didn't end up dominating, but that was because Glover just really showed again how tough he is, how amazing he is. And this fight went so back and forth. It was a fantastic card. And to me, the drama of everything in that card, that made it my submission of the year.
Right. Yuri being known as a striker, and obviously Glover, this fantastic world-class grappler, and for Yuri to get a rear naked choke on him was very impressive. So that's a good shout. All right, let's move on to fight of the year. I had an easy choice for this one. It wasn't a 5-round fight. It was actually a 3-round fight. I had Justin Gaethje's unanimous decision over Michael Chandler. I in the middle of the fight while it was happening, I remember just thinking like this might be the greatest fight I've ever seen. To me, it rivals that Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler fight. And I think the fans were, denied a couple extra rounds. That should have been a 5-round fight. No, they wanted to put that on a pay-per-view, and maybe someday in the future we can see it again. But I would love to see a 5-round war of those guys for sure.
That's a good one. Probably deserved it. I went with Yuri Prohaska and Glover Teixeira for fight of the year. And again, for me, I think it's because the title was on the line. It was a little more of a. I remember this being an early afternoon card too. I was in a super good mood, and I walked away from this fight. This doesn't happen too often. I walked away from this fight feeling really good for both guys at what I just saw, and I couldn't wait for the rematch. And it wasn't like Glover was that type of guy that you would, he wasn't such a dominant champion. It was just it. Yeah. So that just for that reason, that's why that made my fight of the year as well.
So that was also up there with my choices too. But, me being a bit of a hater, I just don't think in that fight we saw the best version of either guy. Sure. So the fight was very exciting, but I think a lot of that excitement was due to them just throwing caution to the wind and being very sloppy and not as technical as they can be. So that's why that fight didn't get it for me. But yeah, it makes sense for a title. Absolute banger of a fight for sure. And yeah, bummer that we're not going to see the rematch. Probably never at this point. Yuri's super injured. Glover is very old. So, we might not ever see that rematch. But you never know. It's a great sport, so we could get it. But let's move on to fight card of the year. There was a lot of good fight cards. I'll do my honorable mention first.
Okay.
So my honorable mention would be the fight night that was held in London. There was a lot of decisions, but just the the atmosphere in the arena from the crowd, I think really hyped it up. And then, Patty's first showing in the UFC at home. Molly had that great spinning back elbow knockout. It was a great night for the fans there. So that would be my honorable mention. But as far as fight card of the year, I'm gonna pick UFC 281. So 10 of the 14 fights were finishes. That card had Dustin versus Michael Chandler on it. Fantastic fight. Dan Hooker versus Claudio Pule. Ryan Spann knocked out Dominic Reyes, and Aaron Blanchfield, who I mentioned earlier, put on an absolute clinic against Molly Meatball McCann.
Well, my honorable mention was UFC 275 Prohaska versus Clover. Because again, I like that fight so much. It was my submission of the year. It was my fight of the year. Shevchenko versus Santos was on this card as well. Weili Zhang versus Jacek was on this card as well. It was an awesome finish. We also had Jake Matthews versus Andre Fajardo, which ended in a KO. And then Jack Delia Madonna, I believe that's how you say his name, but he had a TKO. So it was a great card. It was an honorable mention, though. Like you, I also went with UFC 281 for all the reasons you just mentioned. So I'll just draw a little more attention to that main event. Alex Pereira, Stylebender. Again, that's another fight that could have been fight of the year in a lot of ways, too. So good. I actually saw MMA Junkie had voted Alex Pereira as fighter of the year, which I thought was an interesting choice. He had a good year. He knocked out Sean Strickland. He won the title, but I don't know. Like he's still somewhat of an unproven commodity. But there's no doubt in that fight, and there's no doubt in that pay-per-view. So for me, yeah, UFC 281, that was my card of the year.
Yeah, that was a good shout. I think also it was an MSG card, so it was already huge. Obviously a lot of promotion and hype going into it because of the Piera and Adesanya hype. So, yeah, absolutely great card. And end of the year too. So it's hard to remember all the way back to those early ones. I know there's a lot of great ones, but we got spoiled at the end there. So, all right, we'll move on to our last category. Thank you. It's been a long day today. So we're going to go with fighters that we're going to keep an eye on in 2023, who we think is going to be coming on strong, possible champions or great years. I'll start. I have two. I have a male and a female.
Oh,
okay. So my male fighter, actually, I have three. So I have two male fighters.
Okay.
Obviously, Khamzat. I think he's a given. So I had to put him on my list. But my male fighter that I'm really thinking is the same fighter I believe I picked last year, who had a great year this year, Arnold Allen.
Okay.
Featherweight Arnold Allen. I think that, it's possible he has the skills to beat Volkanovski at featherweight. He probably has to fight one more, depending on what happens with Volkanovski. I mean, obviously he'll be fighting less if he's worrying about lightweight as well. But Arnold Allen is a person to keep an eye on in 2023 for me. And then I'm going to go with, for females, I'm going to go with Erin Blanchfield.
Yeah.
So she has the matchup against Santos, who, got that questionable loss to Valentina. So I would imagine if Erin puts it on Santos in this fight, grappling clinic, which I think she will, I think that promotes her to a title fight. Somebody needs to make a statement to get a shot against Valentina, and I think Erin has the opportunity to do it. So I think she could cause some problems for Valentina too. So that's who you should keep an eye on, in my opinion.
No doubt. When you said female fighter of the year too, I was like, oh man, I should have picked the female fighter of the year. And then I knew I was going to pick, and I knew you were going to probably pick the same one. So yeah, Erin Blanchfield, no doubt, after such an impressive performance over Molly McCann, and now going to this fight with Santos, win or lose, I think she's still going to be someone we're just gonna have to look out for. Now for male fighter of the year, great choices: Hazmat, Allen. I went someone a little lower on the card because I feel like those guys are kind of already there. Obviously, there's still people to look out for. But the guy I went with, who I thought made a big splash, especially recently towards the end, Eli Topuria. I thought after his performance over Bryce Mitchell, who had been, equally impressive over, other guys in the featherweight division, dominant with his wrestling, especially starting to improve on his striking. I thought, okay, Mitchell undefeated. This is going to be interesting. Wasn't interesting. Topuria, he totally worked him. So now I'm starting to think he's got a presence with himself too. The way he handles himself with Patty, I think that this guy could be a guy that ends up being a star and ends up being, I don't know about a champion, but with Volkanovski possibly leaving the division, you have so many other studs there. 1 or 2 fights, he keeps putting on those kind of performances. He could be somebody we see in title contention.
I got one more honorable mention for us too. Friend of the show, LFA fighter, Mateo Gonzalez. He gets a couple wins in LFA. Hopefully we see him in the UFC bantamweight division. I like to see what he can do over there. So shout out to Mateo. If you're watching or you hear this, we're rooting for you.
Absolutely. First guest of the show. We'll never forget. All right. So, guys, I know you usually want us to give it to, but I'm about to say it. We're going to have MMA Jeopardy coming up. For those who are watching on the stream, stay tuned because we're coming right back and we're going to do some MMA Jeopardy. I'm excited. It's a rubber match. Me and Chevy both won one. We've had some kinks in some of these, but I'm excited because this one looks like the best version of
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So, anything you want to say before we're out of here?
Just appreciate the fans. Thank you for another great year for sure. New fans, returning fans. We appreciate the support for sure. Thanks to Cage My IQ for the collaborations this year. Thanks to AJ and Joe and yourself. I just appreciate you guys and have a lot of fun doing this show. So awesome. Keep it going in 2023.
2023, baby. Look out. We're coming. All right, guys. So those listen to audio, we'll see you next week with MMA Jeopardy. Those on the YouTube right now, see you in a few minutes.